Good afternoon, everyone. Today's Battle Rhythm is being hosted by Jeanette Gillis. Jeanette is the Deputy Director of Community Integration at America's Warrior Partnership. She's also the lead for the network, which provides local veteran serving organizations with connection to national resources when a veteran's request cannot be met locally. Find out more, visit www.americaswarriorpartnership.org/the network. That's it for me. Jeanette, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Allison. So we thank all of you for joining us for the October Battle Rhythm. Our topic today is refining upstream approaches to suicide prevention. For our Battle Rhythm today, I would like to welcome all of our affiliate communities, 4-Star Alliance members, veteran service organizations, and all the guests that are joining us today. On the Battle Rhythm today, we have a last-minute addition to our agenda resulting from the information that we gleaned during registration. So please, in the future, when you are registering, please share any thoughts and ideas that you have about future Battle Rhythms and topics so that we can put them into our program. As a result of the information that we have received, we've invited Cindy Bowman from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. She is going to be offering her knowledge about early warning signs and tips for suicide prevention. In addition to Cindy, we have Heather Ely. Heather is the CEO and founder of Project Sanctuary. And we're also grateful to Caitlin Cashwell for joining us. And Caitlin is the Director of Community Integration here at America's Warrior Partnership. So our first speaker being Cindy Bowman. Cindy, I am going to share the floor with you now and ask you to begin your presentation.
Hi, I don't have any slides prepared or anything like that. We do have presentations for a Talk Saves Lives, but I just wanted to share with you as far as like with military, a lot of times military personnel, they will talk about taking their lives, cleaning their firearms. There's a lot of different warning signs that we can pick up on. So if a person talks about killing themselves, it's a good idea to be able to get with them and call the 1-800-273-TALK number. That's for suicide prevention. And you can talk to a counselor right then with the person if you think that they are in crisis. A lot of times people will be feeling hopeless, like there's no reason to continue on. They're burdened to others. They feel trapped or they're experiencing some unbearable pain. And I've talked to a lot of military personnel and realized that, when they come back, sometimes from combat, the pain is just so unbearable and they want to take their own lives. So these are all things, the warning signs that we can reach out to somebody to try and get help with them. There's different veteran suicide prevention hotline numbers too, and that is with the national hotline number. So I wish that everybody, I'll put those in the chat so everybody will have them later so they can reach out to. The different behaviors they might have is they might have an increase of alcohol or drugs, looking for a way for them to kill themselves, searching online for materials or means on how to do that, withdrawing from activities, isolating from family and friends, sleeping little or too much. And it's this is kind of also with high school students, and I'm making this relationship because a lot of times the high school students will just be in their room and the parents sometimes feel that they're lazy when actually the sleeping too much has to do with depression. So just be aware of that. Sometimes if a military person comes back and maybe they're not as engaged as you think they should be, like looking for a job or whatever, and they're sleeping a lot, it might be depression as they came back. So try to recognize those warning signs. Visiting or calling people to say goodbye, I know, like also again, correlating that with students, they give away like their prized bike or skateboard. Well, somebody else might be giving away their motorcycle when they come home and they've saved this motorcycle all this time and Now all of a sudden they're giving it away. So when they start giving away their possessions, that's a real warning sign. A lot of times people go through the depression state, and then all of a sudden, they withdraw from their friends and everything. Now all of a sudden they're talking to their friends, like you say, they're saying goodbye. And then that a lot of times has to do with that they have now decided the method and the means to take their lives. So we need to look for that euphoria too, and try to see a pattern here. So if you recognize any of these, please reach out to somebody. Don't be afraid to ask them, are you feeling like you might be taking your life? You want to take your life? We just need to be honest. Talk saves lives. And I know I myself have called the suicide prevention hotline, 1-800-273-TALK, to talk about a friend's relative. And at the next family party, people were kind of laughing at me because, oh, he wasn't serious. He had lost his wife like 2 years prior to that. But it doesn't matter. Sometimes you're going to be right and sometimes you're going to be wrong, but that doesn't matter. At least you tried. That's the biggest thing. Take that step. Ask the person, are you thinking about taking your life? Show them that you care. Also, through the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, if you go out to YouTube, there's videos out there called Seize the Awkward, just the way it sounds, Seize the Awkward. And it shows different ways that you can approach somebody to ask them if they're thinking about taking their life. So again, that's very, very important. Again, with the military, a lot of times if things change when they come home and you no longer have a spouse waiting there for you, or all these things can happen. A parent has died while you're gone. Just lots of things. And in normal everyday life, if we learn that these things too shall pass, we will get better somehow. We can improve our lives somehow. And if these things are gone, maybe we can start new things and meet new people and try to make new relationships that will fulfill us. So does anybody have any questions right now?
Hugo Lentz says that these are things to look out for, but what about conditions that led to these thoughts and actions?
What I am looking to as conditions myself would be seeing action, military action, or even just, like I had said before, maybe you've lost your spouse or lost a parent and your spouse is no longer there. There's a lot of reasons that somebody might be feeling suicidal. Maybe you can't find a job. In Orange County, we have a place called the Tyranny Center. It's in Tustin, California, and they do a wonderful job trying to help veterans find jobs. So there is hope. I mean, there are places out there and people out there that are willing to help. We just have to connect them. We have to connect the military personnel with the resources that are available, and not the resources where you have to wait in line 100 hours trying to get help. We need to be able to, and that's what the battle rhythm's all about, I think, is trying to connect people. I mean, look at us, we're throughout the United States here. So, and we share ideas. So I think all those things can help. So when you're saying about conditions, I think you're talking about the things that maybe have transpired that you've seen, and then you come back and this is a different reality.
You're absolutely right. With the reason why we're having the battle rhythms is to make sure we all get connected in order to help veterans. Hugo is also saying, which is true, the life events, in addition for military, especially transition out of the military, is really,
right.
Those are really tender times. And yes, either while on deployment or at home after long deployments, Hugo reminds us. And I know that Danielle Bracco is also on the line, and they do with the ETS, which is working with having mentors in communities around the country for service members who are transitioning out. So that's a great service and one that we all really need to wrap our arms around and help. I think we'll move on along to our next presenters.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, seriously, for coming in and doing that for us.
So our next presenter is Heather Ely. Again, Heather is the CEO and founder of Project Sanctuary. So, Heather?
Hi. Well, thank you for having us. Yes, so Project Sanctuary, for those who aren't aware, we do 6-day therapeutic retreats for the entire military family. We host these retreats across the country. We're doing 28 retreats this year. This is our 14th year of operation. So from our very first retreat, we began collecting surveys, just so that the families, number one, felt heard, felt understood, and we could also use that information to strengthen our programs, make them better, and better help other families.
Thanks, Heather. I'm going to jump in here because we're going to kind of do a little bit of a fishbowl, Heather and I. So great introduction, Heather. Thank you for that. I'll just do a quick introduction. Some of y'all already know me, Caitlin Cashwell, Director of Community Integration. I have been with the organization since inception and was a big part of an evaluation project that we did recently with the CDC, and Project Sanctuary also participated in an evaluation project with them. So we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about upstream approaches with this battle rhythm, but also talk about the importance of evaluation and continuing to improve your services and your approaches to stay on top of those conditions like Hugo was asking about, and also stay on top of those best practices for recognizing and also actioning after you have recognized. What Heather's going to focus on during this fishbowl is the connectedness piece of suicide prevention upstream approach. And then I'm going to focus on the community integration side. And some of these intertwine, and multiple programs focus on a few of these upstream approaches together, but that's just how this fishbowl is going to go. So Heather, if you could talk a little bit about the connectedness piece and how you use that in Project Sanctuary, that would be awesome. Okay.
So a few years back, we were working with the researcher that was with Team Red, White, and Blue, and we crafted our own survey for our families based on connectedness. And what we do during the retreats is we create that space so that they can remember who they are and what they really want. So connectedness back to self. And then we have lots of therapeutic activities and classes so that they can connect back to family, whether that's a traditional family, whether it's untraditional family, a parent, a sibling, a battle buddy. Connect back to another human being is so important. And then ultimately our connectedness and our surveys are measuring connectedness back to community. Do they know the resources? Do they have the support needed? So we're looking at 3 different areas with connectedness.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. So a little background of America's Warrior Partnerships community integration model. So we have created a foundational program. That's where America's Warrior Partnerships started, with a proactive solution focused, that warrior-centric model encompassing a 4-step plan. So connect, educate, advocate, and collaborate is our holistic approach that we use. The model is simple, but it's dynamic in that it can be used in rural communities, urban communities, companies, schools, universities, all those things, using that same 4-step plan, starting with connecting with veterans, building a strong, trusted relationship with those veterans, family members, and caregivers as an important part of that veteran's life, and then also connecting with local partners to understand the offerings that they have to support that population, educating veterans on resources and benefits available to them and that they have earned and what they're eligible for, and then educating the community on those things that veterans are seeking through wants and needs. And all of that has to be identified through surveys and evaluation. So that is one thing for the educate piece. Advocate on behalf of veterans when they encounter obstacles obstacles. So if they aren't getting the support they need, like Cindy mentioned, if the line is too long for them to get the support they need, how are we working with the community to kind of fill in that gap, and then advocating for the community to ensure resources exist for the veteran, and then collaborating with everybody to get that job done. So that is our way of one size fits one for the veteran, and also one size fits one for the community approach for our model. That's just a quick overview, but Heather, I'm going to turn it back over to you, because it's a little bit about your background and how you felt that was useful for program evaluation, and then also maybe where you felt you could grow.
My background before I went into the nonprofit arena, I was an outcome-based quality assurance registered nurse, which is just fancy for saying that I've always really liked data. I like to make sure that we're using data and asking the right questions so that we can strengthen our programs. Our program mirrors home care in a lot of ways, that we don't focus just on the veteran, we focus on the whole family. So we're also collecting data and taking a look at the caregivers and also the teenagers, which is so important within that family dynamic. And I think a lot of people, they get overwhelmed when we start talking about data points and metrics and qualitative and quantitative surveys, and it seems a little bit overwhelming. But if you actually recognize that you're probably already collecting a lot of this data just by asking, how was your experience with our organization? That is so valuable, and it does so many things because the families feel like they're being heard. You're getting real feedback so that you can strengthen your program, maybe even share this information with other organizations. You mentioned that we had the opportunity to work with the CDC Foundation as they studied suicide this year. And they helped us hone in on something that we feel like our program's great, and I know we all do, but then they really challenged us. Are we asking the right questions? And so we went through the process to take a look at, are we really asking the right questions, right down to how is our onboarding process, our orientation, getting families into the program. Is it easy? Is it overwhelming? Can we even improve that? So sometimes it's asking those types of questions along with the connectedness and the quality of life.
I agree 100%. That's certainly something that we have thought about over the years that we did the evaluation project, is that piece of why are you asking this? And does it align with what you actually want to get to? So collecting data is great. We always had lots and lots of data that we collected, but sometimes it can be taxing to those that you serve. And sometimes it can be that the question doesn't align with what you're actually trying to get at. So I think that's certainly an important thing to think about. When you were doing the evaluation project, is there any sort of kind of barriers that you identified that made evaluation just challenging for your organization?
Yes, those would be called my retreat managers. If you don't explain and talk to the families and let them know why this is important and why we're collecting the data, then you don't get the buy-in. So we've gone to an all online process. It was much easier when we were on paper and we could hand the families, the caregiver, the veteran, the teens a piece of paper before they left the retreat. Our completion rate was about 100%. Now that we've moved to an online platform, it's a little more hit or miss. So we found that we really need to let the families understand and know why this is important and how the data is being used to help other families. We're even offering a little bit of an incentive. So if the families continue to fill out our surveys, because we do track them for a period of 2 years, and then we give them Amazon gift cards.
That's something awesome just to see happened out of that evaluation project. Just real quick on my background. So I actually have an undergrad in mathematics, and so I automatically gravitate towards quantitative data. I always forget about that qualitative measures of success, and just also the importance of asking the appropriate questions. I think you touched a little bit on this, Heather, already, but just the power of saying, hey, we care about what you think about the services that we're offering, and we care if this is actually getting us to where we want to go. And not just for the clients. I think too, one thing we realized is just talking to our stakeholders and the importance of continuously engaging your stakeholders and saying, hey, is this what you expected from our program? Are we appropriately communicating with you what our impact is, whether it's funders, whether it's partners, whether it's people, volunteers helping you with outreach for your program and all that sort of things. I wanted to touch a little bit about that. And then too, with the qualitative versus the quantitative is like finding where your company or your organization is maybe lacking in balancing those two, because some people are very quantitative focused and they love the graphs and the numbers and the statistics and all that stuff. And then some people want to see the stories and they want to see how you're making that refinement through, just those success stories and all that stuff. So that's just one thing. Let's see. How has your organization recently started prioritizing evaluation? Like, why did you want to be a part of the CDC evaluation project? What was the background on that?
We've been collecting data for every single retreat. So we're at 240. So it's always been extremely important, but to help refine our processes so that we were making sure that we were asking the right questions, we were measuring it correctly. We had everything in line, the logic models. It was really, working with the CDC Foundation, it was just so powerful. They are so good at what they do. And ultimately, this does all go back down to suicide prevention. If we're asking the right questions, we're looking at the numbers, we're looking at trends, and if we can look at the family as a whole and the veteran. And in the chat box, they were talking about life transitions, and we ask those questions too. Have you moved? Even happy stresses sometimes can be stresses. Have you moved? Are you thinking about a separation or a divorce? Are there job changes? Are you homeless? Are you couch surfing? Drugs and alcohol? These are all important things. And then being able to narrow that down so that the veteran or the caregiver, the teen, and of course the teen questions are more appropriate, to make sure the questions and the length of the questions aren't overwhelming, but we're still getting what we need to make sure that, hey, maybe we need a warm phone call, check in on this family, see how they're really doing.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned is like exciting transitions in life. So maybe I have a 10-month-old. So me being a new mom, sometimes things can get a little challenging. So yeah, those are things to recognize as well. One thing that I thought was really cool and the CDC did really well is logic models. So it's like painful sometimes to think about logic models. But I think they did a good job of talking through what are the resources that you have and where do you need to go? And then filling out in between. And I think that's something important when you're saying, are you asking the right questions? Are you doing the right things that are leading you to suicide prevention? So like almost aligning those things. Like if you want to do a connectedness model, and then communication is something that's weak in your organization, like maybe we should think about bridging that gap to make it more seamless to say, hey, we're building relationships, we're helping people connect to each other and with our retreats and stuff like that. So that's one thing I think that is important is logic models are scary, but if you work through the evaluation framework that the CDC has, they can be a little bit more digestible, I think is the word.
Yeah, and so we're also measuring our classes also. So our first 2 days are on the communication relationships, and then financial classes, and then post-traumatic stress. How do we live with it? So, and I see the question to find upstream approach. And to me, it's taking a look at the whole. There may not be one risk sign or one thing. Taking a look at the whole individual, mentally, physically, socially, spiritually, where are they and how can we enhance their lives? To me, that means upstream. What can we do to better take care of our families? And we'll get those answers a lot of times by asking the right questions and getting to know the families and letting them know that they've been heard.
Yes. And thank you, Allison, for that question, bringing me back to some of my earlier notes of, so there's over 40,000 veteran-focused organizations, and some of them don't do that proactive outreach, and a lot of them focus on complex needs. So the upstream piece that we're talking about is like similar, saying, hey, you can't treat heart disease by waiting people to come in the ER with a heart attack, because at that point you're triaging very emergency situations, and you know that as a nurse. So what we're trying to do with the connectedness model and community integration is proactively building that relationship with veterans, meeting them where they are, and then we do solution focus to say, hey, where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And what we measure is a quality of life scale. And we've had a survey that we've done for the past 5 years to correlate the quality of life scale with hope. So we've been seeing in the chat box hopelessness and measuring hope. So our quality of life is a short questionnaire to be able to say, hey, how are you feeling? Do you feel supported? Are you able to be resilient, or we call it bounce back or adapt? So that if somebody's saying, whoa, I can't deal with the next day, we're able to kind of catch that through that measurement. So that's one way that we are measuring quality of life. And every veteran that comes in through our community affiliates, using our model, we assess them holistically around 8 areas, from that strong relationships, which is so important that the connectedness piece focuses on, to meaningful employment and access to purposeful activities or housing, VA benefits, all those things, to ensure that that quality of life is balanced, and that, yeah, we're seeing them as a whole person, as Heather was saying. Yeah, anything else you want to touch on with that upstream approach, Heather?
No, I think, yeah, really, like we said, it's honoring the whole person, and giving them the opportunity to connect with themselves and to actually trust and build that relationship and that bridge, so we understand what's going on. And it is quality of life. It's taking a look at everything. There's not one solution to prevent suicide. We're complex human beings, and our military families and our veterans are certainly even more complex. So the more that we can create that space and that quality of life and ask those questions and address the issues. And I liked what Cindy was talking about also. Sometimes it's asking the difficult questions. It's making ourselves uncomfortable, but sometimes we need to know. So that may not come across in your quantitative data or your perfect little surveys, which is why we also like to take the time to have our counselors call the families pre-retreat and post-retreat and have that conversation. And then if anything does pop up on the surveys, we can use that as an opportunity also.
Right. Yes, that is a great point. And I'm always paired up with people like Jeanette, who's great at that social services side of things, and doing those interviews one-to-one with those that we serve. So this is a good segue into, because we're talking about the whole person. So why is evaluation so important when it comes to social services, Heather? I think we've touched a little bit on it, but is there anything you want to talk about on that?
So after our retreats, we continue to stay with the families for 2 years. We've got an amazing case manager, finally. Her name is Casey, so that we're able to provide whatever support and services and to reach back out to other organizations. So the social services piece to make sure they feel connected back to their community. And maybe that's sending them to another retreat with Lynn, or maybe that's partnering with other organizations through America Warriors Partnership and continuing that journey, because engagement over time, which I see in the questions, is so important. I can't fix anybody in 6 days. No one can fix themselves in 6 days. But over a period of time, if we give them the tools and we keep them connected and keep them moving forward through social services type activities, they tend to do much better. And we get back to that hope, because there's always a next step and there's always more people that care.
Right. And on our side, it's a team. It takes a team, like you said, partnering with other people. You know, you can say something some way and another person can say it a way that's even more meaningful to that individual, or getting them involved in their community. So we're huge advocates for that continuous engagement as well, and creating multiple touch points with them that are meaningful, that get them to where they want to be. And the evaluation piece, and why it's important, is that I think these veterans are ambitious. So this population is like, we're going to get it done. We're going to move forward. We're going to go ahead. And I always love being in this industry because of that. So with that, they come with unique opportunities and challenges. So us continuing to refine our approach and stay on top of what it is that population wants and needs, I think is very important for organizations to look at the data, look at the both qualitative and quantitative data that you're collecting, so that you know that your program is getting to that impact and those outcomes that you want to achieve. I think we just owe it to this population for sure. So we have one more last question, 3 minutes. What is just kind of like any more lessons learned, any more good, bad, ugly when it comes to evaluation, or call to action for those that are listening?
Yeah, I think that it's always constantly evolving. So constantly taking a look at your data sets and what you're trying to measure. Military families 14 years ago, I was asking totally different questions than I am now. So making sure that your program's always evolving and that you have the buy-in from your staff. I can have the perfect evaluation model, and that's the bad and the ugly. And if my staff isn't believing in it and they're not presenting it to the families correctly so that we're getting the initial reaction and the initial feedback, then it doesn't work. We have to have the buy-in, not just from the families, but from the staff, and making sure that they are presenting this opportunity to the families correctly. So it does take time.
Yeah, and I want to add to that is, don't be afraid of the feedback that you get, and admitting that maybe you were wrong or you missed the mark. Because not admitting that you're wrong costs somebody their life, to be honest, and not helping them get to that hopeful place. So I think if you find that there's a red flag in your program or something that you can tweak or refine, I do encourage you to just accept that and then move forward just one step at a time in the right direction to correct that. So it is overwhelming and daunting. Both Heather and I have been there to see that you maybe missed the mark, but hey, just rally your team and rally your partners and the resources that you have access to so that you can move forward, I think is my biggest call to action. And then the CDC evaluation framework, I mentioned it, it's free, it's available online. I'll make sure that this is shared in the Battle Rhythm After Action, but it is a great step to start adopting that culture of evaluation and engaging your stakeholders to say, hey, are we doing what the need is? So,
Yeah.
well, thank you, Heather. I think that's, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for just doing this little fishbowl with us. And I hope that the attendees got something great out of it. And I will turn it back to Jeanette and Allison.
All right, thank you. Thank you all, Cindy, Caitlin, and Heather, for a wonderful presentation. I'm going to hand over today's battle rhythm to Allison to introduce the breakout activity.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks, Heather and Caitlin, for being here, and Cindy for giving us our great presentation to start us off today. Now we're going to transition into our breakout activity. Our breakout activity today, for the next 25 minutes, we're going to go into groups. And in a few minutes, I'm going to open those groups up. And they are upstream approaches. That's going to be maybe led by Hugo via the chat phone, because he's stuck on a train. But we have some other people that are going to be helping in that group. And then topic 2 is connectedness discussion. That's going to be led by Heather Ely from Project Sanctuary. And then topic number 3 is the community integration. That's going to be led today by Jeanette Gillis. So we can have evaluation discussions today be led by Caitlin Cashwell. So choose one like you really would like to be a part of the discussion in, or learn more about, or share more about. And I'm going to open the rooms now. We'll come back together in 25 minutes. We'll have a wrap up with a key takeaway and closing. So guys, here we go. Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm going to go ahead and fill the whole screen up with everybody, and you can leave your camera zone if you'd like. That way we can see everybody. But so for the first group, was upstream approaches. We had an interesting dilemma that was led by Hugo based on a chat feature, I think. So Hugo, are you able to talk, or do we have someone from that group that can share?
I was able to cobble something together, so I'm still here. So yeah.
Well, go ahead. Do you want to share a takeaway from your group?
Sure. So I think the big thing that struck me through this discussion is so Travis Manion Foundation focuses on the upstream. We don't deal necessarily with veterans in crisis. And the thing that struck me is I wonder if those two specializations need to be separated, that organizations that deal with upstream do the upstream stuff to prevent people from getting into crisis. And then those organizations that focus on the crisis, the suicide prevention itself, have to be different. I'm not sure that those two things can kind of be melded together unless you have a huge organization. So that's kind of what struck me, because there wasn't, within my group, there didn't seem to be a whole lot of upstream work that happens. It's more crisis, and people have identified, hey, I'm in crisis, I need help. So that's the takeaway for me. I know it's not earth-shattering or anything, but I wonder, I would open it up to commentary of what do other people think about that? Do those two things need to be kind of separated?
Good thoughts. Anybody want to add something?
If I can piggyback what Hugo was saying,
Sure.
We are expanding into pre-care this year. We got a very robust database that's letting us do that and sort of semi-automates our processes. But I think what it does for our organization, and I think it would for a lot of them, and it's to Heather's point too, I think they need continual care by the same group as long as it's effective throughout. You know, you do pre-care, then we do our event, then we do a second event, and then we continue the post-care with them.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for adding. I think I saw Matt reaching for his and the Wisconsin group.
Actually, it was today, Allison. So Q here. So we're talking about ETS sponsorship, which is that upstream intervention with a transitioning service member 6 to 12 months before they ETS, and pairing them with a sponsor on the ground to help them build a plan and come home with a soft landing, rather than what we all deal with, as I think it was Hugo mentioned. We're dealing with today with the existing veteran population, that urgent situation or that crisis. I can't feed my family. I lost my job. I'm homeless. All of those kinds of things that can certainly exacerbate suicidal ideation ramp it up really fast. So while we deal with that, with the existing veteran population, the ideal, I think, upstream intervention is ETS as that rolls out across the nation. But of course, it's only in 7 states so far. We're only dealing with the Army so far, so we've got to get 50 states in all 5 or 6 branches, including Space Force, all enrolled, or the opportunity for that transitioning service member to find someone to help them come home. I think what we forget is, you know, when we're in the military, we got tore down and we got built back up, and we're used to having a team and support. And then you're dumped on the ground all alone. You're out now and you don't have that. So the whole focus of ETS is to have that in place for you, to have the veteran, once they become a veteran, understand there's a huge network of organizations in this state, veteran-centric and otherwise, who are ready and willing to step up and help veterans.
Excellent. It's going to take the big team. And on that line, connectedness, it's all about being connected. That was group number 2 with Heather's. Heather, did you have some key takeaway from your group or someone to do that?
Yeah, so our focused on connecting back with the veteran and the importance of recognizing that the whole family also may serve as well. So the veteran who goes on deployment may not be the same veteran that comes home. And also at the same time, the family, when they left and then came home, the family also changes. And just the importance of and the responsibility that we all carry to stay connected to other organizations, so that the connectedness is a warm handoff. Let's keep them in the loop. Let's keep providing hope and moving them forward. But working with other organizations and understanding exactly where they're coming from and what other resources are available is so important. Whether that's Cindy threw out a great one that I didn't know today, gizmo.com for some of the children. A lot of times we use the Sesame Street if they're having young children having issues with post-traumatic stress or deployments, but really connecting back to themselves, their family, and then their community. And each one of us really plays a huge part in that journey, and that evolution and the connectedness.
Yes. Jeanette, can I hear from a takeaway from your group? Thank you, Heather.
Really, we mainly talked about the VA and the different things that the VA is doing and how people can connect with the VA for support. And then we touched on ETS sponsorship and what they're doing and the importance of mentors and how they can be a part of the prevention efforts. And if anybody else in my group wants to jump in and say what the takeaway was for them, that would be great.
Okay, so anybody from Jeanette's group? So we'll move, I think, to the last one.
I got a takeaway. Sorry, it took me a second. I was actually sending the notes from the group just then. One of the big takeaways was from, I believe it was Lori, that anyone can participate when you have someone that is in crisis, and you don't need to be afraid to ask the big question if they need help or if they're contemplating suicide, and that everyone should be working to do outreach and reach out to your local VA to find out who the outreach coordinator is for the Suicide Prevention Center or group or program so that you can help out. So that was another takeaway I thought was quite.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. And the last group, evaluation, Caitlin?
For this group. Basically, the biggest takeaway from this group is using evaluation as a tool to make yourself better with your job and also to be able to efficiently help veterans so they can get the help that they need. And it was just Ashley, Caitlin, and I, so we kind of focused in on how evaluation plays into the network specifically. So it's really interesting and good to hear about the intakes that we do and how those correlate with like quality of life and to go towards that type of evaluation too.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Amber. I'm going to turn it back over to Jeanette. You guys all, thank you for attending today, and Jeanette's going to close us out. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and joining in on our conversation. Before we end today's session, I would like to share something additional from you, from us at America's Warrior Partnership. We would like to invite you to register for our 8th annual Community Integration Symposium. It'll be held October 25th through the 27th. This is a 100% virtual experience, and we hope you all attend. Thanks to our sponsors, the registration is free for all participants. So if you register today, you will receive 3 full days of networking, workshops, interactive experiences, breakout sessions, and really just general convening on how to be a part of the solution when it comes to our nation's veterans, families, and caregivers. To learn more, you can reach out to our website, www.americaswarriorpartnership.org/symposium. That'll give you more information, and there's also a link there to register for the conference. So hopefully we will join you all on that. Thank you for collaborating and sharing. At America's Warrior Partnership, we empower communities to empower veterans. I hope this experience today has been an opportunity for you to do just that and that you gain something valuable. Our next battle rhythm will be on December 6th, 2021. We will be supporting underserved warriors in rural communities. So that should be an interesting one, and we hope that you all will join us for that. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.